It's 12:30 p.m. on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy is riding in an open-top limousine through Dealey Plaza, waving to thousands of cheering supporters. The sun is shining. The crowds are enthusiastic. It's supposed to be a triumphant political tour through a crucial swing state ahead of the 1964 election. Kennedy has no idea that in the next few seconds, he will be dead. Someone is about to fire the shots that will change American history forever. Here is how it unfolded. By the time this video is published, we've had over 60 years to analyse every frame of film, every witness statement, and every piece of evidence from that day. But the precision of this attack, the layout of Dealey Plaza, and the split-second timing still generate new theories and debates about what really happened in those crucial moments. It's a clear, crisp autumn day in Dallas. The temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. President Kennedy is making a 2-day political swing through Texas, a state he barely won in 1960 and desperately needs to secure for his re-election campaign. The trip has been planned for months, and the route through downtown Dallas has been published in local newspapers days in advance. The presidential motorcade consists of 13 vehicles. Kennedy is riding an SS-100X, a specially modified 1961 Lincoln Continental convertible painted midnight blue. The car is 21 feet long and weighs over 7,800 pounds. Most importantly for what's about to happen, the bulletproof bubble top has been removed because Kennedy wants direct contact with the crowds. In the limousine, President Kennedy sits in the rear right seat. His wife Jackie is beside him in a pink Chanel suit and matching pillbox hat. In the front seats are Texas Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie. Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman sits in the front passenger seat, while Agent Bill Greer is driving. Behind them in a follow-up car are 8 more Secret Service agents, including Clint Hill, who will play a crucial role in the next few minutes. The motorcade has been travelling through downtown Dallas for about 45 minutes, making several stops and taking a circuitous route designed to maximise Kennedy's exposure to voters. At 12:29 p.m., the motorcade turns from Main Street onto Houston Street, heading north toward the Texas School Book Depository. This 7-story red brick building sits at the corner of Houston and Elm Streets. It's a textbook warehouse, unremarkable except for its position overlooking what's about to become the most famous intersection in American history. The building employs about 75 people, including a 24-year-old former Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald has been working there as an order filler for just over a month. What most of his co-workers don't know is that Oswald has a history of political extremism, defection to the Soviet Union, and an obsession with firearms. Take a look at what happened. Oswald's path to this moment began years earlier. He's a troubled young man with a history of violence, political instability, and grandiose delusions. He spent nearly 3 years in the Soviet Union after defecting from the Marines. He returned to the United States in 1962 with his Russian wife Marina and their infant daughter. Oswald has been planning something dramatic for months, though the exact nature of his plan remains unclear. In March 1963, he ordered a Mannlicher Carcano rifle through a mail-order catalogue, using the alias A. Heidel. The rifle costs $19.95 plus shipping. It's a World War II-era Italian military surplus weapon, bolt-action, with a 4-power telescopic sight. Earlier that morning, Oswald rode to work with 19-year-old Buell Wesley Frazier, a co-worker who lived near the rooming house where Oswald stayed during the week. Oswald told Frazier he was carrying curtain rods for his apartment, but the long package wrapped in brown paper almost certainly contained his disassembled rifle. The motorcade is now making the final turn of its route. At 12:30 p.m, President Kennedy's limousine turns left from Houston Street onto Elm Street, beginning its descent toward the triple underpass. This turn requires the car to slow to about 11 miles per hour. The crowds are thinner here as the motorcade heads away from the main downtown area. 6 floors above, in the southeast corner window of the Texas School Book Depository, Lee Harvey Oswald has positioned himself with his rifle. He's created a sniper's nest using cardboard boxes to shield himself from view and steady his weapon. The window provides a perfect vantage point overlooking Elm Street. From Oswald's position, he can see the presidential limousine approaching. The distance is about 100 feet and closing. Kennedy is clearly visible in the back seat, his distinctive profile unmistakable even from this height. The target is moving slowly in a straight line directly away from the shooter, the easiest possible shot for a trained marksman. At approximately 12:30 p.m, as the limousine continues down Elm Street, Oswald fires his first shot. The bullet misses the limousine entirely and strikes the pavement near the car, sending up a small puff of concrete dust. Some witnesses later report hearing what they thought was a firecracker or a motorcycle backfire. President Kennedy and Governor Connolly both hear the sound but don't immediately recognize it as gunshot. Kennedy continues waving to the sparse crowd. Jackie smiles and waves as well. In the follow-up car, Secret Service agents are scanning the crowds but haven't yet identified the source of the noise. Oswald quickly works the bolt action of his rifle, ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering a new round. The entire process takes about 2.3 seconds. The presidential limousine is now about 200 feet from the book depository, moving at approximately 11 miles per hour. At 12:30:06 p.m, Oswald fires his second shot. This bullet strikes both President Kennedy and Governor Connolly. It's the shot that will later become known as the magic bullet, because of its seemingly impossible trajectory through two men. Take a look at what happened. The bullet enters Kennedy's back just to the right of his spine, about 5.5 inches below his collar. It travels through his body, exits through his throat just below his Adam's apple, then continues to strike Governor Connolly in the back, just below his right armpit. The bullet passes through Connolly's chest, shatters his fifth rib, exits below his right nipple, then strikes his right wrist, breaking the radius bone. Finally, the bullet lodges in Connolly's left thigh. 7 wounds from a single bullet, a trajectory that would fuel conspiracy theories for decades. Kennedy reacts immediately to being hit. His hands move toward his throat as he begins to lean forward. He appears confused and in pain, but is still conscious and alert. Governor Connolly screams, "Oh, no, no, no!" and begins to collapse in his seat, blood spreading across his white shirt. Jackie Kennedy, sitting just inches away, doesn't immediately understand what's happening. She turns toward her husband with a look of concern but not yet panic. In the front seat, Nellie Connolly is reaching for her wounded husband while Agent Kellerman is beginning to react to the crisis. But the nightmare isn't over. Oswald is preparing for his final fatal shot. He works the bolt action again, chambering his third and final round. The presidential limousine is now about 300 feet away and beginning to accelerate as Secret Service agent Bill Greer finally realizes they're under attack. But it's too late. At 12:13 p.m, Oswald fires his third shot. This bullet strikes President Kennedy in the head with devastating effect. The impact is visible in the famous Zapruder film. Kennedy's head snaps violently backward as a spray of blood and brain matter explodes from the wound. The bullet enters the right rear of Kennedy's head and exits through the right front, causing massive trauma to his brain. The wound is immediately fatal, though Kennedy's heart will continue beating for several more minutes. Jackie Kennedy screams, "Oh my God, they have shot my husband!" and begins climbing onto the trunk of the moving car. Secret Service agent Clint Hill, running behind the presidential limousine, leaps onto the back of the car and pushes Jackie back into her seat. The iconic image of Hill shielding the Kennedys with his body will become one of the defining photographs of that day. Hill later described seeing a large portion of Kennedy's brain missing from the right rear of his head. Agent Greer finally accelerates the limousine, racing toward Parkland Memorial Hospital about 4 miles away. The motorcade reaches speeds of over 80 miles per hour as they rush through Dallas traffic. Radio communications crackle with urgent messages. "We have a shooting here, and get us to a hospital fast." The shooting sequence lasted just 8.6 seconds. 3 shots, 2 hits, 1 fatal. The most powerful man in the world has been assassinated in broad daylight in front of hundreds of witnesses and multiple cameras. But while chaos erupts in Dealey Plaza, Lee Harvey Oswald is already making his escape. After firing his final shot, he quickly hides his rifle behind a stack of boxes and heads for the stairwell. Other employees are rushing to the windows to see what happened, but Oswald calmly walks down 6 flights of stairs. At 12:33 p.m, just 3 minutes after the shooting, Oswald exits the book depository through the front door. He's stopped briefly by Dallas police officer Marion Baker and building superintendent Roy Truly, but Truly identifies Oswald as an employee and they let him go. It's a crucial mistake that gives Oswald precious minutes to escape. Oswald walks 7 blocks east on Elm Street, then boards a bus heading back toward his rooming house in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas. but traffic is snarled because of the assassination, and the bus gets stuck. Oswald gets off and hails a taxi, arriving at his rooming house at 1026 North Beckley Avenue at approximately 1 p.m. He stays at the rooming house for just 3 minutes, long enough to grab a .38 caliber revolver and change his jacket. His landlady, Erlene Roberts, later reports that he seemed hurried and agitated. At 1:03 p.m, Oswald leaves the rooming house and disappears into the Oak Cliff neighbourhood. Meanwhile, at Parkland Hospital, doctors are working frantically to save President Kennedy's life. But the head wound is too severe. At 1 p.m, Dr. Malcolm Perry announces that Kennedy has died. He's 46 years old. The announcement to the world comes at 1:33 p.m. President John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 p.m. Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. Back in Oak Cliff, Lee Harvey Oswald is walking east on 10th Street when he encounters Dallas police officer J.D. Tippett. Officer Tippett had received a radio description of the suspected assassin and apparently thought Oswald matched it. He pulls over and gets out of his patrol car to question the young man. At approximately 1:15 p.m, Oswald shoots and kills Officer Tippett with 4 bullets from his .38 revolver. Multiple witnesses see the shooting and watch as Oswald flees the scene on foot, dumping empty shell casings as he runs. The murder of Officer Tippett proves to be Oswald's undoing. The witnesses provide descriptions to police, and the manhunt intensifies in the Oak Cliff area. At 1:40 p.m, Oswald ducks into the Texas Theatre, a movie house showing a double feature. He doesn't buy a ticket, which alerts the suspicious cashier. At 1:50 p.m, Dallas police surround the theatre. When they enter and turn on the house lights, Oswald is sitting in the rear of the theatre, looking nervous and agitated. As officers approach him, he stands up and shouts, "This is it!" He pulls out his revolver, but it misfires. Officers tackle him, and after a brief struggle, Lee Harvey Oswald is under arrest. "I didn't shoot anybody," Oswald protests as he's dragged from the theatre, but ballistics evidence will later link his rifle to the bullets that killed Kennedy and his revolver to the bullets that killed Officer Tippett. The case seems straightforward: a lone gunman with clear means, opportunity, and physical evidence linking him to both crimes. But the story doesn't end with Oswald's arrest. On November 24th, while being transferred from the Dallas City Jail to the county jail, Oswald is shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby in front of a live television audience. Ruby claims he killed Oswald to spare Jackie Kennedy the trauma of a trial, but his murder of the prime suspect fuels decades of conspiracy theories. The Warren Commission, appointed by President Lyndon Johnson to investigate the assassination, concludes that Oswald acted alone. But their findings satisfy few Americans. The House Select Committee on Assassinations, convened in the 1970s, concludes that Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, but is unable to identify other gunmen or the nature of the plot. The Kennedy assassination has spawned thousands of books, hundreds of documentaries, and countless theories about additional shooters, government cover-ups, and alternative explanations for what happened in Dealey Plaza. The Zapruder film has been analysed frame by frame. The trajectory of bullets has been recreated dozens of times. Witness testimonies have been scrutinised and debated. Some theories focus on the grassy knoll, a small hill to the right and front of Kennedy's limousine, where some witnesses reported seeing smoke and hearing shots. Others question whether Oswald had the marksmanship skills to make 3 shots in 8.6 seconds with a bolt-action rifle. Still others point to inconsistencies in witness testimonies and physical evidence. But despite 60 years of investigation and speculation, no credible evidence has emerged to definitively prove a conspiracy. The acoustic evidence that initially suggested multiple shooters has been debunked. The supposed impossibility of the magic bullet trajectory has been recreated successfully in laboratory conditions, and no credible alternative explanation has emerged that accounts for all the physical evidence. The House Select Committee on Assassinations spent 4 years and $5.4 million investigating the case in the 1970s. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses, reviewed all available evidence, and conducted new ballistics and medical tests. Their final conclusion was that Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, but they couldn't identify any co-conspirators or prove the existence of a second gunman. The committee's conspiracy finding was based primarily on acoustic evidence from a police radio recording. But when the National Academy of Sciences reviewed this evidence in 1982, they concluded that the supposed gunshot sounds were actually recorded after the assassination was over, making them irrelevant to the case. Modern technology has allowed for increasingly sophisticated analysis of the assassination evidence. Computer models have recreated the shooting scenario thousands of times, testing different variables and theories. Digital enhancement of the Zapruder film has provided new details about the shooting sequence, and advances in ballistic science have allowed for more precise analysis of bullet trajectories and wound patterns. In 2003, a team of researchers used advanced computer modelling to test the single bullet theory. They created precise 3D models of Kennedy and Connolly based on their autopsy reports and medical records, then positioned them exactly as they sat in the limousine. The simulation showed that a single bullet from Oswald's position could indeed have caused all their non-fatal wounds. The CIA and FBI files related to the assassination were classified for decades, fueling speculation about government cover-ups. The JFK Records Act of 1992 required the release of millions of pages of previously classified documents. While these files revealed embarrassing details about intelligence operations, they provided no credible evidence of CIA or FBI involvement in Kennedy's murder. However, the files did reveal the extent to which both agencies had been watching Oswald before the assassination. The CIA had a file on him dating back to his defection to the Soviet Union. The FBI had interviewed him after his return to the United States and was monitoring his pro-Castro activities. Yet neither agency shared information that might have prevented the assassination. This intelligence failure became a key focus of later investigations. Oswald had been on nobody's watch list despite his defection, his Marxist beliefs, his attempted assassination of right-wing General Edwin Walker 7 months earlier, and his recent trip to Mexico City where he visited Soviet and Cuban embassies. The Mexico City trip in late September 1963 remains one of the most mysterious aspects of Oswald's story. He travelled there by bus, seeking visas to visit Cuba and the Soviet Union. He was photographed by CIA surveillance cameras and recorded by listening devices as he visited both embassies, but his visa applications were denied, and he returned to Dallas angry and disappointed. Some conspiracy theorists argue that Oswald was recruited by foreign intelligence services during this trip, but the evidence suggests the opposite, that both the Cubans and Soviets viewed him as unstable and potentially dangerous. They wanted nothing to do with him. The Soviet KGB files, opened after the collapse of the Soviet Union, confirm that Moscow considered Oswald a mentally unstable individual who might cause them problems. They were relieved when he returned to the United States in 1962 and had no interest in him thereafter. Cuban intelligence files, released in later years, show similar attitudes toward Oswald. Dr. Cyril Wecht, a prominent forensic pathologist and critic of the Warren Commission, has argued for decades that the medical evidence proves a conspiracy. Wecht contends that the head wound pattern indicates Kennedy was struck by bullets from multiple directions, but other forensic experts who have examined the same evidence reach different conclusions. The Clark panel, convened in 1968 to review the autopsy materials, confirmed the Warren Commission's findings. The House Select Committee's forensic pathology panel, using more advanced techniques, also concluded that Kennedy was struck by only 2 bullets, both fired from behind and above. One persistent theory involves the Secret Service agents themselves. Some witnesses reported smelling gunpowder at street level, leading to speculation that one of the agents in the follow-up car accidentally discharged his weapon and fired the fatal headshot. But this theory has been thoroughly debunked by ballistics evidence and witness testimony. The Parkland Hospital doctors who first treated Kennedy reported that his throat wound appeared to be an entrance wound, suggesting a shot from the front. But this observation was made during a frantic attempt to save the president's life, and the doctors later acknowledged they didn't perform a thorough examination of the wound. The autopsy clearly showed it was an exit wound. Numerous individuals have claimed over the years to have been involved in or to have knowledge of a conspiracy, but these claims have consistently failed to withstand scrutiny. Some are obvious fabrications designed to profit from the assassination's notoriety. Others may reflect genuine confusion or false memories, formed over decades of exposure to conspiracy theories. E. Howard Hunt, a CIA operative involved in the Bay of Pigs invasion and later the Watergate break-in, made deathbed confessions in 2007 claiming knowledge of a CIA plot to kill Kennedy. But Hunt's claims were vague, unsupported by evidence, and contradicted by documented facts about his whereabouts on November 22, 1963. Frank Sturgis, another CIA operative, also claimed involvement in Kennedy's assassination. But like Hunt's claims, Sturgis's statements were made years after the fact, contained factual errors, and weren't supported by credible evidence. The organised crime theory gained prominence after the House Select Committee noted that several mafia figures had made threats against Kennedy. The president's brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, had launched an unprecedented crackdown on organised crime. Some mobsters publicly expressed their anger at this campaign. Carlos Marcello, the New Orleans crime boss, reportedly said Kennedy should be killed, and that if you want to kill a dog, you cut off its head. Santo Traficante Jr., the Tampa crime boss, made similar threats, and Johnny Roselli, a Chicago mobster, later hinted at mob involvement in the assassination. But despite extensive FBI investigations and congressional hearings, no credible evidence has ever linked organised crime to Kennedy's murder. The logistics of such a conspiracy would have required extensive planning and coordination, leaving behind evidence that has never been found. The military-industrial complex theory suggests Kennedy was killed because he planned to withdraw from Vietnam and reduce military spending. Proponents point to National Security Action Memorandum 263, signed by Kennedy shortly before his death, which called for the withdrawal of 1,000 military advisors from South Vietnam by the end of 1963. But historians note that this withdrawal was conditional on South Vietnamese military progress and was more symbolic than substantial. Kennedy had actually increased military aid to South Vietnam during his presidency and showed no signs of abandoning the anti-communist fight in Southeast Asia. The Cuban connection theory has multiple variants. Some claim Castro ordered Kennedy's assassination in retaliation for CIA attempts on his life. Others suggest anti-Castro Cuban exiles killed Kennedy because they believed he had abandoned them after the Bay of Pigs invasion. But again, despite extensive investigation, no credible evidence supports either theory. The Majestic 12 and UFO cover-up theories emerged decades after the assassination, claiming Kennedy was killed because he planned to reveal the existence of extraterrestrial life. These theories are based on documents that have been proven to be hoaxes and have no credible basis in fact. Recent scientific advances have allowed researchers to test some long-standing theories about the assassination. In 2013, researchers used neutron activation analysis to test bullet fragments recovered from the limousine and from Governor Connolly's wrist. The results were consistent with the fragments coming from just 2 bullets, supporting the official conclusion. Researchers have also used modern ballistics gelatin to test the effects of Mannlicher Carcano bullets on simulated human tissue. These tests show that the bullets behave exactly as the Warren Commission concluded they would, maintaining their shape while causing extensive internal damage. The Discovery Channel, National Geographic, and other organisations have conducted elaborate recreations of the assassination, using computer modelling, ballistics testing, and detailed reconstructions of Dealey Plaza. These recreations consistently support the conclusion that Oswald acted alone. Yet polls consistently show that a majority of Americans believe Kennedy was killed as the result of a conspiracy. This disconnect between scientific evidence and public opinion reflects the lasting impact of the assassination on American culture and the persistent appeal of conspiracy theories in explaining traumatic national events. What remains undisputed is the impact of those 8.6 seconds in Dealey Plaza on American history. Kennedy's death ended what many consider the last era of American innocence. The optimism and confidence of the early 1960s gave way to the turmoil of Vietnam, Watergate, and social upheaval. The assassination also transformed presidential security forever. Never again would a president ride in an open car through city streets. The Secret Service was expanded and professionalized. Presidential movements became carefully choreographed security operations rather than public celebrations. The visual impact of the Kennedy assassination, captured in the Zapruder film and broadcast repeatedly on television, also marked a turning point in how Americans consume news. For the first time, a national tragedy unfolded in real time on television screens across the country. The 4-day period from the assassination to Kennedy's funeral became television's first truly national shared experience. Today you can visit Dealey Plaza and see the exact spot where Kennedy was killed. The Texas School Book Depository is now the 6th floor museum, with exhibits about Kennedy's life and the assassination. A white X marks the spot on Elm Street where the fatal shot occurred. The grassy knoll remains a pilgrimage site for conspiracy theorists and curiosity seekers. The mapping of the Kennedy assassination reveals a tragedy that unfolded with shocking speed and precision. In just 8.6 seconds, 3 shots from a mail-order rifle ended the life of the most powerful man in the world and changed the course of American history. Whether Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone or as part of a larger conspiracy may never be definitively resolved, but the impact of those few seconds in Dallas continues to shape America today. The questions raised by Kennedy's death about government transparency, media responsibility, and the fragility of democratic institutions remain as relevant now as they were in 1963, and the image of a young president cut down in his prime continues to symbolize both the promise and the vulnerability of American democracy.